And welcome back to the Sports Fix on this Monday night. We've covered local football with the Flowman earlier, but now it's time to look at the AFL. The round 1 week was, and I'm joined by the Statman. Jace, how are you today?
We're the pride of South Australia.
Okay, don't worry, folks.
Yeah, I'm going okay. Yeah. I'm going okay.
Good.
I'm up and about, Clayton. And about.
Which is pretty rare for you, considering last year. Now, I need to point out, all this kerfuffle you've got here about the reason why the Crows won, it's absolute crap.
Oh, really?
The reason you guys won is because of a good friend, Lucas D'Antonio. He is a Geelong supporter, card-carrying club member, very proud. But every time my good friend Lucas has gone to see the Crows or Port Adelaide play Geelong at Adelaide Oval, guess which team has always lost?
Well, Cats fans
Geelong,
need to make sure that man loses his membership quickly.
And I said it a few weeks back when we were talking about it, that if you want Geelong to lose, when you pick them to go all the way and win the flag this year, send Lucas to every game and they'll lose, and that's what you got to do. Well, he told me on Saturday he was going, and I just said, well, all the Crows fans are going to be happy because then he's going, no, we've got to win this one. We can't lose this. So he hasn't returned my phone call or my text, Jace. I don't know what to do. I'm a bit sort of perplexed by that.
Well, the things you do for your significant other, Clayton, as you know, Crows supporter, season ticket holder, and gave up going to watch the round 1 clash because it was my lovely wife's birthday on Saturday, and we toured around the Barossa Valley.
Choice. You made the wise choice.
So off to Seppesfield Winery and a few other places, and I'm seeing the scores come through, and we're kicking goal after goal after goal, and I'm getting angrier and angrier and angrier. And never mind, we got home by half time.
Okay.
And I got to watch the Geelong comeback. But look, seriously for a moment on the game, a ridiculous result. It just goes to show you why we love footy so much. It's why it's not played on paper, it's played on a grass ground. Yeah. And if you looked at it on paper, you would have said, how far the Cats? But, of course, Geelong, lots to be said, I think, about these teams that play in a grand final, particularly last year, having a month shorter pre-season than teams that don't make the finals. I would really like the AFL to draw a line in the sand with this now and acknowledge the fact that round 1 should be the grand final replay. Enough of this Richmond and Carlton starting the season all the time. Let's just put that to one side and let's do what's fair for these teams. If you win the premiership, you shouldn't be disadvantaged in round 1, or if you make the grand final, you shouldn't be disadvantaged in round 1 by playing a team that's had an extra month break than you have.
Yeah. It should be playing on equal level playing field.
Yeah, and there's ways to do it. Yeah. It's very, very simple, really. Just make sure the final 8 play each other. The final 8 from last year. What a great start to a season that would be. Imagine having a grand final replay as your season opener on a Thursday night. You would pack the MCG to the rafters. I mean, we just sometimes have to worry less about the tradition of things and more about what is good for the game, and I think that would be good for the game.
Correct, and what's wrong with starting a new tradition?
Yeah.
And I tend to agree. I think that is something that should happen. That would be good to see, very good to see. And as we just have a quick look back, Richmond, they did, of course, defeat Carlton by 25 points last Thursday night. The Friday night game, the Bulldogs against Collingwood, and I reckon Collingwood, you think they might win this one, but the Bulldogs were way too good.
Yeah, they were, and they're going to be a very good side this year. The Western Bulldogs are only going to get better. Adam Treloar didn't have much of an impact on the game against his former club, to be honest, but they did enough, the Dogs. And Collingwood, I'm not sure where Collingwood are at. I think they're going to be middle of the road this year. Maybe they could squeeze into the 8, but I don't think they're going to make much of an impact on the season.
The off-field stuff, you think it's affected on-field now?
I think they've lost too many quality players. I mean, saw Tom Phillips star for Hawthorn. We saw Adam Treloar running around for the Bulldogs, and Jaden Stevenson was best on ground for North Melbourne in their game against Port Adelaide. Or best for North Melbourne, not necessarily best on ground. You get my point. They're their 3 players that they've lost out of their starting 22 to other clubs. So. And Collingwood didn't win the flag last year, so you can only see them getting worse.
Simon Goodwin would be pretty happy that the Melbourne D's had a win.
Well, they found a way not to choke, I guess is probably the best way to look at it in this game. I didn't see a minute of it. I've seen the highlights, and to be honest, I think it was a fairly uninspiring game, not one that Melbourne supporters would be getting overly excited about. But hey, anytime you start the season with a win, it's a good day.
It certainly is, as you're happy with the Crows defeating Geelong. Well, that was a good victory, I thought, anyway.
Just a little shot across the bow for the Flow man, who, remember, if you go back to last year, kept saying that Taylor Walker was completely washed up, finished, and would never be any good again. Go and watch the first half.
Yeah, he played all right.
He goes okay.
Yeah.
When he gets some service.
Well, that was the other point. And there was a comment that one of the commentators said that the new rule change is probably factored in to help Taylor to receive the ball a lot better. And he seemed to be relishing in this new rule change at the moment. You agree with that?
I agree with that. I also agree that the disposal efficiency for the Crows helps a lot. When that's up and Walker is leading up the ground and getting good service, that's what he's capable of.
Very good. All right. What a ripper game it was on Saturday night. The Hawthorn Hawks by 1 point over the Bombers. The Bombers will be kicking themselves.
They should be. I mean, they were 7-goal up.
They should have won it, yeah.
Lots of pressure already heaped on Ben Rutten. I watched a little bit of this game, Clayton, having got my footy fix from the Crows second half and still being pumped up. I was ready to watch some more footy. And Ben Rutten sat on the bench for the entirety of the second half, watched Hawthorn run over the top. But we've seen coaches before direct traffic, get animated, get involved in the game. Ben Rutten sat there like a statue in the second half and watched it all unfold. I'm thinking, what are you doing? Like, if he's genuinely watching the game and not having any interaction with his players, wouldn't he be better off doing that from the coach's box? Surely, if you're the coach and you're going down to the ground level and you want to interact with players and give them directions, maybe get animated, do some yelling and whatnot, he sat there with his hands by his side and watched the game unfold and looked like some sort of, I don't know, statue sitting on the sidelines. It's very bizarre. Very bizarre.
Bizarre indeed. Well, let's hope it's going to be a different bizarre for him in the weeks ahead. The other game was Brisbane hosting the Sydney Swans, and the Swans were too good.
Speaking of bizarre, about 5 minutes into this game, the Brisbane Lions were 3-0 in front, and it looked like it was going to be a whitewash, and it was, just the other way. The Swans were incredible, and their young kids that have come out of their academy, look out. Buddy Franklin returning for the Swans next week against the Crows, his first game since 2019. They might be the big improvers.
They might be. And are you going to tip the Swans this week then?
We'll worry about that later.
We will. On to the Sunday games, the lunchtime game. Port Adelaide defeated North Melbourne. Very happy with that result, I can tell you.
Yeah, well, you should be. Port Adelaide are as good as we thought they'd be, and to be honest, after quarter time, North Melbourne are as bad as we thought they'd be. They are your wooden spooners in waiting.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I thought it was a very good result. Then the next game, you said something on the Friday Night Sports Show about if they're the real deal, they will win, and that was St Kilda defeating the Giants.
And they were challenged, yes, I am. They were challenged in this game. The Giants on their home deck, still some quality players in there. And it looked as though late in the game that the Giants would overrun St Kilda, and it would be another one of those years. This is a different St Kilda. Watch out for them this year.
Okay, you're going to be backing them in weeks ahead. I can feel it. And the final game, the Eagles hosting the Suns, and they ran out 25-point winners.
They were unlucky, the Suns, to go down by this much. In fact, they were unlucky to lose. 2 minutes into the game, the West Coast Eagles led this 3-1 score. Matt Rao down with a knee injury. We're not sure exactly how long he'll be out for. And then the Gold Coast Suns won the majority of the next 2.5 quarters. It was only late that it got away from them. And I tell you what, they were good, the Gold Coast Suns, so good on them.
They're going to be ones to watch in the weeks ahead. I know you were talking about that a couple of weeks back. Paddy Dangerfield, will he get rubbed out?
Yes, he's going to the tribunal, and there's no question that he will go for multiple weeks and should. Yep. The reality is the AFL has made a stand on contact to the head. Yep. They've said if you choose to bump, you are responsible for the outcome. Now, I don't think there was anything intentionally nasty or whatnot from what Patrick Dangerfield did, and the contact to the head came from a head clash, but he chose to bump. He had another option there, Dangerfield. He could have bailed out. He could have chosen to tackle after the fact, or at least been a little bit more careful with what he did. He charged in. He made contact. The heads collided. We saw Jake Kelly leave the ground with a concussion and a broken nose. Dangerfield will get 3 weeks minimum.
There goes the Brownlow for him.
Yep.
Key injuries, I noticed that apart from Jake Kelly, there's a couple of others with the Crows. Is that a concern?
Oh, yes. The Crows have already got a long injury list. We're talking about a side which is on the rebuild. So Luke Brown going down with an Achilles is a real problem for them. Mitch Hinge, who was the recruit from the Brisbane Lions, popped his shoulder out an estimated 4 to 5 times during the game.
Wow.
It wasn't just the first incident of note where it took some time for them to get it back in. Wasn't the first time in the game he'd popped it out, apparently. And then he came back on the ground afterwards and popped it out again. But that was due to the medical sub having already been used. So there's no way Mitch Hinge will be playing for a while, nor Luke Brown, nor Jake Kelly. Jake Kelly, of the concussion rule, can't play for another 12 days anyway. So, they've got some concerns. Jordan Butts isn't listed on the injury list, but he did come from the ground after having a really good half. So the Crows have got some injury concerns there. Other significant injuries, of course, I mentioned Matt Rowell with his knee injury. That is horrible for the competition, just awful. The young man has played 6 games of AFL now and has had 2 significant injuries. He's a star. We know his shoulder injury last year cost him the season. We're just hoping, and all reports are that it'll be a significant time off, but it's not an ACL. So we're just waiting to find out if that's true, and I hope it is for the young man. I was watching the documentary series Making Your Mark, and during his layoff last year, he did what they call the Everest on the bike. Now, this is amazing footage. Matt Rowell and his high-performance manager of the Gold Coast and Stuart Dew got on the bikes, and there is a simulation inside the stadium there at Metricon, and they simulated riding from the foot of Mount Everest to the summit. It took them 18 hours to do it.
Wow.
Incredible footage. It's worth having a look at, but talk about a man who's motivated. That's Matt Rowell, so he deserves a run at it.
That's a pretty big distance, yes, and hopefully he will come back and be playing. And that just on that, what did you think of the sub rule after round 1? Do you think it's getting abused? What's your thoughts, Jace?
Look, I don't like it. Nothing can convince me it's a good thing. We had a ridiculous situation where a young lad from Hawthorn played his first game in inverted commas in a 1-point victory and didn't play a minute on the ground, and they had to find him a jumper so that he could get in the middle and celebrate and sing the song at the end of the game. I really don't like the setup. I mean, if you're a medical sub and you don't play, there's no way you should be credited with a game, but you're picked in the starting lineup. I really don't like it, and I think I can see it getting rorted. And that's a concern as well. So, I'm not a fan.
Yeah, I can see the rule getting very, very bent by some of the crafty coaches that are out there.
And you saw the situation in the Crows game where, what are we thinking, just one injury is going to happen in these games? I mean, the Crows were 3 players down on the bench, and the same thing that they want the rule to do is being done with the cap on the interchanges anyway. So I don't see what the problem is. If you lose 1, 2, 3 players in a game, there's still a cap on interchanges, so you still can't get that much of an advantage on your opposition anyway, other than the fact that you might be missing a star through injury.
And your player of the round, Dusty Martin?
Yeah, he was a star, and is a star. He is the best player in the competition by a country mile. He can do things on football fields that nobody else can do. He not only has vision, he has power, he has class, he has finesse. He's the full package, the real deal. Yeah. Probably the best, I think, we've seen, best all-round player I believe we've seen since Lee Matthews.
Okay. He's a great talent. I love watching him. I wish he played in my colours, but anyway, I'll happily watch him. I think he's a great talent, great player to watch.
And I think at the end of his career, we're going to be talking about him in the same class as Lee Matthews.
Yep. Very fair point. All right, no doubt we'll get some more with AFL news with you throughout the week, and also the selections for round number 2. Some interesting games already coming up, and it could be a worrying sign for some sides that could end up. Well, they could be 0-2 they wouldn't have really wanted to be 0-2 going into the rounds coming up by Easter.
No, well, here's a fact for you. At the end of round 2, one of Brisbane or Geelong will be 0-2, and one of the Adelaide Crows or the Sydney Swans will be 2-0. Who would have thought that at the start of this season?
Wouldn't have thought that at all. All right, thanks, Jace. Thanks for joining us on the Sports Fix, and we'll catch you again tomorrow.
Thanks, Clayton.